Hello, Eric. Thanks for joining. Congrats on the win. You've
Thank
got
you.
Andy Greeter here and Jose Nunez from MLS. We'll have those guys go back and forth. We'll get started with a question from Andy. Andy, when you're ready.
Eric, what's your overall view of this match?
Yeah, I'm really pleased with how we managed to close the game out, and you guys know full well that we probably carrying a little bit of baggage from last week as we approach those final stages. And again, it's one of those sets of circumstances that are really hard to contend with, and I'm not making excuses on the players' part for how we have some difficulty as we hit the final periods of the game, but it's another one in the searing heat. It really saps the energy from the players, and I think you saw from sort of 75 onwards the toll of last week added to what are some very difficult circumstances here physically. So I was really pleased that the players got rewards for, I think, a very, very good first half performance and a very complete performance. I think certainly over the first 45 and patches in the second half, and then for their effort, will, desperation, and real conviction in seeing the game out, because that was so important after what happened at Red.
Eric, just one. Jose Nunez with MLSsoccer.com. Congratulations. Wanted to, and I think this is almost like coaches hate to answer this question, but actually think about the victory and thinking about the table, which of course you are, but maybe don't want to talk about it too much. How much does this mean to you being within touching distance and keeping pace, lockstep with, the teams above you here being in third place, even if it's temporary overnight?
No, it's so important that we close this section of the season within touching distance of the top teams, and we really keep our heads above water in that sense. We've had some very strong conversations with a really ambitious tone to them amongst the group around how we have to finish this 5 game block or 4 game block after the game that we play tonight, as we head into the Leagues Cup, as we head into a transfer window, and tonight was the first step of what I hope will be a run of form where we can continue to keep pace points wise, but really improve from a performance perspective. And I felt like tonight we really did that. And last week there were patches where we are showing ourselves to be a much more complete team. Tonight you saw the best of us, I would say, on the ball over the course of a large part of the first half. I think we connected a lot of passes, but played with real intent to attack and find the space in behind, which, as I say, isn't easy in these conditions. I think the temptation is to play at a really slow rhythm, but I felt like we struck that balance really well, and that was something that I wanted to focus on today, and I want to focus on moving forward. And then we retained largely what makes us such a good team and a difficult team to play against: the obvious set play throughout the defensive organisation and the difficulty with which the opposition plays against us, and we obviously had some good chances on the counter attack. So I felt like that completeness is something that we wanted to show today, and it's something we want to show over the course of the coming 5 games. If we do that, then I know we will be able to continue to keep pace.
Eric, you added two more set piece goals tonight. I think that gives you the league lead with 13. How would you describe kind of the high level that you guys are playing at when it comes to those?
Yeah, I think it's the what makes us good on set plays is what makes us a good team in general. It's a level of organisation, discipline, willingness, real conviction in what we do. I don't think anything that we do is rocket science. I don't think it will take the opposition long to work out what sits behind our success, but stopping it is something very different. And I think we've got to a point where we've got a lot of variation. We've got a lot of ways in which we can spring an element of surprise, but we've also got some ruthless simplicity as well. And I think you've seen a little bit of that tonight. But ultimately, the players deserve real credit for, as I say, what sits behind the components of our good performances, which is a togetherness, a willingness, and an ability to execute a game plan. And that's what we need if we want to be a team that competes with the top teams, the big spenders in this league. And at the moment, we're doing that really, really well.
Eric, sorry to not have the exact date of your start in Major League Soccer last year. I'm guessing you're coming up, if not already completed, a year in terms of 365 days or close to it. What do you make of the Western Conference this year, considering how tight it is at the top, and then there's also this maybe gap in between? But what do you make of the competition on the Western Conference this year specifically?
Yeah, I'm well beyond a year at this point, much closer to 2, and or certainly beyond the 18-month mark. And I feel like we've worked out the challenges that this league in general poses, and whether you were sort of dialed into how the season panned out for us last year, but we had a really difficult June for lots of reasons that the MLS is fairly unique in throwing at you in terms of playing through international tournaments and heat, climate, geography, travel, and we were adamant that during this period that wasn't going to happen to us, and we found a way, albeit acceptingly, the circumstances haven't been as extreme this year as they were last year. But I think in some very difficult circumstances, we've come through really well. Challenge is very unique to the MLS, as I say, back-to-back games in 30-degree heat late on in the day that doesn't let up. The last two games, and we've come out of those two with 4 points. We went back-to-back from Vancouver to Seattle not long ago, and picked up 4 points in really difficult circumstances, a lot of travel, difficult pitches. And I feel like we as a group of staff and a group of players and a group as a whole, we're very good at being very pragmatic, adaptable, getting our heads down, finding solutions, and I'll reference it again, there's a real sense of togetherness and conviction in what we're trying to do. And certainly for large periods tonight, you saw that, and ultimately that helped us get over the line, and that was so important tonight, given how we have fared in those circumstances in a couple of games previously.
Eric, you talked about kind of having to hold on to a lead late. What was similar? What was different from this one compared to Red Bulls?
Yeah, I feel like we were slightly more active around the top of the box in preventing the ball coming into the box. I felt like we had a real problem there against Red Bull, and that was a big point that we made over the course of this week, that we can't rely on shape and numbers at the top of the box. We have to show a real desperation to get up to the ball and prevent the ball coming into the box. And obviously we're very, very capable at defending crosses, and you've seen that tonight at the first goal aside. And across Boxy, Nico, Jeff, Carlos, Morris, when he comes on, you've got guys in there that are desperate to keep the ball out of the net. Dane, you add to that. So they showed those qualities as they did last week, but we just couldn't get over the line. I would say also we added slightly more composure, I think, on the transition in the late stages of the game, and we were able to close the game out in their half. We had some moments where we were able to carry the ball up the pitch well, but I think that is an area where we still need to make huge strides. We need to improve in that sense, and there's obviously a stark contrast between how we looked in the first half and how we looked in the second half. So there's elements that I will for sure want to take forward and build upon, but there are, as there is every week, there are areas that we want to go and look at and make sure that we improve around.
And I guess the final question for me specifically, and you sort of alluded to it with the amount of effort needed considering the conditions and the composure required to come through this game, but defensively keeping someone like Pitar Musa out of the net, considering his track record of scoring and really how much of a handful he is for any defender, whether they're gigantic or maybe a more a normal size. Just sort of what do you make of the effort of your defense and keeping someone like him out of the back of the net?
Yeah, we prepared in a really detailed way for dealing with that threat, and obviously dealing with it starts much higher up the pitch than it does in defending balls into the box. But ultimately, against them, for sure, you are going to spend periods of time where you're defending the box and defending crosses against, for me, what is one of the best, if not the best, sort of out and out typical number 9 in certainly our conference, if not the league as a whole. And then when you add Acosta to that is probably the best 9-10 combination that you will see at this level. So it's no small achievement to have done what we've done tonight and keep those two relatively quiet. And I made the point at half time. I'd given the message repeatedly over the course of the previous days in the build up to this game that they are one of those teams they're relatively unpredictable, I would say, and both those guys can hurt you in an instant. And I think we felt that in the first half. We felt like we had real control of the game in the first half. For sure, we felt like we had our foot on their neck and multiple chances, lots of momentum, but they had arguably the biggest moments of the first half because of the quality that they have at the top end of the pitch, and that was something that we had to contend with. So again, it's not an easy thing to come here and win, and it's not an easy thing to come here and win convincingly. So I think all round we deserve a lot of credit as a team, and it sets us up really well for an exciting next week where we play an Open Cup game at home, and then we lead into 2 home games. So we're in a good place, but we have to make sure that there's no complacency and we keep doing what we're doing.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks,
Eric,
pleasure.
you had Kelvin and Tanny together up top for the first time since I think late April, starting a match. Obviously, they didn't have a goal. How'd you feel like that went for them two together?
Yeah, I think they had some good moments individually and as a pair. Obviously, we've played it subtly in a different way to the way in which we were playing it at the beginning of the year. But I felt ultimately effort, willingness, discipline, real defensive contribution from both of them. And obviously, I was in a tricky position at half time, and then in a tricky position as we get to 60 minutes because both of them are on a booking. I'm typically pretty ruthless around making sure that bookings don't lead to red cards. And I think Tanny would probably have a slightly more understanding of that decision, sort of given what happened to Canada recently against Guatemala. That changes the game for them, and I was very, very conscious of that not happening to us when we had what felt like good control of the game. So we did miss them when they ended up off, and we missed that physical presence at the top end of the pitch. But I think on balance, it was easy for me to say in hindsight with us having won, but it was probably a sensible decision. But I'm adamant that two can play in the same team, and I'll certainly find a way to make that happen. So we'll see as the weeks and months go on, combinations of players at the top of the pitch that include both of them and sometimes one of them. But certainly for tonight, I think there was far more good than bad.
Just a few quick ones. Nico, what's he dealing with?
Yeah, it was a knock to the calf. It wasn't a strain, it wasn't a tear, it was just a knock. Yeah, sensible decision to take him off. Hopefully not something that leads to him being out for too long, but certainly would probably put Tuesday into question, but we'll see how he pulls up tomorrow.
And then obviously the focus is on Tuesday, but friendly on Monday. Who are some of the players that come to mind of guys you want to take a look at there?
Yeah, we have to be really sort of clinical, I suppose, in how we go about picking the teams for these 2 days, because ultimately we've got one competitive game and one game that isn't competitive, and I think everyone looks at the Open Cup as a competition that we really want to put lots of energy into and a real focus on progressing. We've obviously got a clean run of home games as a route to the final, so I want to make sure that we put everything into Tuesday. So Monday for sure we'll see some first team players, but it will obviously, I don't think anyone would suspect otherwise, it will be a mixed team, and guys that need some minutes will play, and we'll have a little look at how the group feels as a whole after tomorrow, and we'll make that decision on Sunday. But expect players that very obviously need minutes to play that game on Monday, and then we will treat Tuesday with the respect and enthusiasm and competitiveness that it deserves.
Thanks for the time. Safe travels.
Thanks, guys. Speak soon.